you would please stand, please, for the invocation.
Would you join your hearts with mine? Heavenly Father, I come to you this evening as these are elected servants and public officials deliberate the business of our community and town. We are so grateful that we live in a place where justice is sought and maintained. I thank you, Lord, for their love for our town, and I pray that you would give them wisdom and skill as they do the work of leading and planning and managing. I ask that you would grant them success in their efforts to see our community thrive. Would their labor on our behalf this evening be fulfilling to them personally, and would you give them joy in seeing their work bear fruit and blessing others? We thank you, Lord, for all those who work for our town, whether they work in government, finance, community development, public services, or human resources. These seem to be difficult days. We pray for the wisdom and skill needed to navigate and respond to circumstances that have come to us for the betterment of our community. Lord, we ask that you would have mercy on our law enforcement personnel and keep them safe as they do the work of protecting. Have mercy on our emergency, fire, and rescue service personnel. Lord, we thank you for them, and we ask that you would protect them as they run towards danger and put themselves in harm's way. Lastly, I pray for the men and women gathered here in all their various roles. Some are here to be heard. May we listen. Some are here working when many have finished their days of work and are at home with their families. Lord, would you bless their families and keep them? And others here are here to serve. Lord, let them serve well. But all who have come tonight, Lord, whether they come to work or to speak, Lord, they come with their own burdens and troubles, desires and needs. Would you bless their families and their loved ones and give them grace and the mercy that they seek? Would you work in these servants tonight that they might find joy in their work, and may they look to you for what they need. They might have strength and courage to do what is needful and right. And may we all do what we do, knowing that this world is not all that there is, that there is a reward for those who earnestly seek you. Lord, please bless them and bless the deliberations of this meeting. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Reverend Edwards. Thank you very much. If you'd now please remain standing and join us in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We do not have public hearings on any particular matter scheduled for tonight, but there will be an opportunity for speakers from the floor. So far, I have only one card of a speaker who would like to appear tonight and address the board. If there are others of you who would like to do so, there are cards located at the rear of the room on the little desk at the back there. If you would please fill one of those out, if you would like to speak, it's not too late. And if you would then, after filling it out, if you would hand it to Mr. Swisher at the front of the room, we'll recognize you for your matter that you'd like to address the board on. Since we do not have a public hearing tonight as such, I won't address the time limitations that the board adopted on February 8th of 2022, but I would like to address the policy that the board adopted at that time with respect to those who would like to speak on any other matter tonight. Okay. Those speaking tonight will have a period, general, I believe that's of 5 minutes. 5 minutes to speak on your subject. I'm sure that you'll be concise and be ready to do that, but we would certainly love to hear from you. And again, any of you who would like to address other matters, If you'll just fill out the card for us, that'd be very helpful. Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any speakers from the floor that would like to?
15 minutes for the public session item and 5.
Okay. Let me make one correction. Mr. Swisher has corrected me. If you are on a public session item, you also have 15 minutes. And that again is as per the policy adopted by the board on February 8th of 2022. Are there any speakers from the floor that would like to address the board tonight? I have one. Are there others?
He's coming. All of these will come up when you get to that item on the agenda. These will come up, see they put item, agenda item.
Okay.
He'll come up with item
On the agenda item. Okay.
The speakers from forward just come up.
Okay. There being none, we'll move on with the other items on the agenda listed under Roman numeral 1, public session. At this time, we will recognize Mr. Milt Rhodes for an update on the Weldon development. Mr. Rhodes.
Hey, good evening, aldermen, staff.
Mr. Rhodes, let me ask you if you please, there you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last time I was here, it's been too long. I think it was probably at least 3 or 4 years ago that I gave y'all an update on the Weldon Village project. And I was thinking about it tonight. I know the last time I was here, I didn't have to put these on to read my speech. So tonight I shall put them on so I can see. So good evening. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to provide some information about Weldon Village. My name is Milt Rhodes, and I serve as the project manager for Arden Homes and the vision keeper for Weldon Village. My job covers a lot of territory, and keeping Weldon Village true to the vision book that we prepared back almost 10 years ago is one of my primary objectives. And tonight I'd like to provide you with a general update on our progress. Can you hear me okay? Okay. There are now more than 200 homes occupied in 4 distinct boroughs within Weldon Village. The boroughs include Eastover Park, South Green, Springvale Hill, and Weldon Ridge. Later this year, we expect to start construction on the West Ridge neighborhood. This year, we've been fortunate to, after many years, also acquire the 20-acre Stafford property that sits within the middle of the Weldon Village assemblage, and we're working with town staff right now on bringing this forward with an annexation and zoning to bring it into the rest of the community. The Weldon Park apartments are actively growing with their population, and we expect the full occupancy later this summer. As a vital part of our community, Weldon Park Apartments offers a lot of new housing for new Kernersville residents who are moving here to find a home. And there are quite a few long-time Kernersville residents that have sold their homes and moved into the Weldon Park Apartments as they either wait for a new home at Weldon to be built or find another place in the Triad, or perhaps they're moving out to the mountains or the coast. But we're happy that that provides them with an option in Weldon Village. Our first commercial building is nearly finished, and the first commercial tenant, Dr. Brandon Murray, is nearly complete with his new dental practice that'll be going into that building. We keep trying daily to get Duke to complete their energy work so that we can get the building powered up. But with any luck, Weldon Village Dental will be open by the end of June. The new Cone Health Medical Office building is also expected to open this summer. And we're happy to see Cone expand into Kernersville and into Weldon Village specifically. We have 9 parks connected by a network of more than 2 miles worth of sidewalks, and the Stafford Creek Nature Trail provides additional recreational opportunities within Weldon Village. And that connects the Creek Club to other portions of the Weldon Center neighborhood. The children of Weldon Village have many places to enjoy being young. That's one of my favorite things to see as project manager. I call them free-range kids. They get to be kids in Weldon Village. They get to walk to parks, playgrounds, or plazas. They're within a short distance of most of the homes. It doesn't require that their parents get in a car and drive them to a place, and these kids get to have an experience that is rare these days. I would encourage you, if you haven't already done it, to stop by our sales center on Highway 66 across from Bishop McGinnis High School. Ethan Johnson, when he was 9 years old, started building a house like his house at Weldon Village out of Legos. And he completed that this year, and his family's loaned it to us, and we have that in the sales center. And it is really something to check out. I would encourage all of y'all to go check out his work. Good job to Ethan and his family for loaning that to us. I understand from Curtis that Weldon Village is a revenue positive project for the town and an asset to the town, and we're very excited about strengthening that as we add more commercial and other multifamily uses into the village over the next few years. When a grocer decides to make a decision about locating in southern Kernersville, we're ready. We did a lot of preemptive work last year to be ready for this moment when that happens in southern Kernersville. It's getting very close. I'll tell you, on any given day, so long as it's not raining, more than 200 people are working out at Weldon in a multitude of our construction activities. We have 9 active and ongoing phases out there. The investment made with the town of Kernersville is on track to exceed our expectations envisioned nearly a decade ago. The prep work done in the early days with staff working on the vision book and other codes and standards that we've used is doing its job, and we're happy with seeing how it's progressing. The careful execution of our incremental growth plan in concert with the town and town leadership is making it a very good place. On a personal note, getting to know the residents at a personal level, understanding where they're from, learning what their background is, hearing about their positive experiences with us as developers, and also learning from some of the less positive experiences is making us grow in a good direction. And I'm excited to see that happen on a daily basis. Going forward, working in tandem and partnership with staff and y'all in leadership, and our community partners like Chris from the Chamber and other business leaders in Kernersville is helping us execute this vision book and keep us on the right track to a successful, great asset for the town. And we're excited to be here. And I'm thankful to have the chance to come up and tell you about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you either now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Does any member of the board have questions of Mr. Rhodes? Okay. Hearing none, thank you very much. If you have not had an opportunity to drive out to Weldon Village and see what's going on, you should take that opportunity. If you don't go that way on a regular basis, you'll be amazed at the progress that's been made. It truly is a new community, and Mr. Rhodes, we congratulate you and your company on the success you're building there. Thank you. Okay. The second item on for public session is the 2022 annual reports and 2023 budget request. And we have on the list of presentations to be made tonight. The first is Kernersville Museum. I believe Mr. Jim Taylor. Actually, it's not Jim Taylor. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Herman, and I am the current board president for the Kernersville Museum Foundation Board of Directors. And behind me, I have my lovely board of directors, if you all, and one over there. So thank you all for being here this evening. We really appreciate you having us. It is an honor to be here and share with you the 2022 year in review. Coming off of a few very tough COVID shutdown years, with restrictions and all that fun, we started 2022 full of potential. As you are all probably aware, it certainly didn't turn out to be quite the year that we had planned, or imagined. But January rolled in with the museum finishing up another season of ice skating in the heart of downtown. The messy weather had forced the rink to stay closed for several days, so we actually extended our ice skating into mid-January. This allowed more people to come into downtown and enjoy the unique experience that the ice skating brought in such a special location. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. In February, we hosted a very sweet opening to our 2022 speaker series with Courting in Kernersville. 3 couples married anywhere from 20 to 54 years shared stories of what it was like to court in Kernersville over various time periods. They reminisced about old places and experiences that transported the audience back in time to a Kernersville that looks very different than it does today. So it's very interesting and neat to hear about that. If you didn't get to see it, it's on YouTube. You can check it out. It's a nice little watch. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. In March, foundation issues forced us to close the Bellamy House to the public and move our office to the historic depot. From the beginning, our goal has been to reopen the Bellamy House to the public as it is the heart of our museum. After an initial meeting with a contractor who understands old homes, it was clear that we were going to need to take a few extra steps to ensure that the house would be safe for commercial use for years to come. We were very fortunate to be introduced to CB2 Structural Engineering and Metropolis Architecture. This duo had just completed the historic Wall House renovation in Walburg, North Carolina, which is right down the road. So I was able to check that out, and it's a very nice project. Their work converting that historic home to a museum brought so much knowledge and experience to the table. They both have a passion for older homes and have taken great care to come up with a plan that will shore up the house without damaging the structure. They also took some extra time and worked very hard to come up with the most cost-effective solutions possible. It's been quite the journey, and we are beyond thankful to the town of Kernersville for being so helpful as we've gone through the process. I'm happy to say that the final plan is finished, and we actually get to review it later on this week. After we obtain the final approvals, the project will go into a 30-day bid period. This means that hopefully we will have some concrete numbers for repair and a rough timeline sometime in the near future. The road to this spot has been longer than we would have liked, but it seems to be the new normal in construction here lately. We're very excited about the prospect of reopening the Bellamy House at some point, as it really is the centerpiece of the museum and the historic village right in the heart of downtown. With the Bellamy House closed, I mentioned that we shifted our base of operations to the depot. It was certainly less than ideal, but our staff packed up their offices and they made it work. We spent April working to adjust and work out the kinks of the new space. Can I have the next slide, please? In May, we opened at the depot and hosted a very successful speakeasy event that brought participants back in time to the roaring 20s in Kernersville. It was a really fun casino night that ended with participants being able to use their play money winnings to outbid each other in an auction that was full of fun items and baskets that had been donated from businesses and individuals throughout Kernersville. So that was a lot of fun. Can I have the next slide, please? Excuse me. In June, our executive director resigned to take a new job with the town. Our part-time employee finished up his graduate degree in museum studies and moved back to his hometown in Virginia. This added another unexpected layer to our year and left us in quite the interesting spot. We had no idea of how long the Bellamy House project would take, and it felt irresponsible, honestly, to hire a new director in such an unpredictable situation. The board does plan to hire a new executive director once we have a concrete plan and timeline in place for the reopening of the Bellamy House. I look forward to the day when the new executive director is the one up here giving this report. For the time being, our board decided to go back to its original playbook and operate as a fully functional volunteer-run organization. This dedicated group of individuals listed here, they rolled up their sleeves and took on roles and responsibilities that they had no idea they were agreeing to when they initially became a part of the board. These people have dedicated their time and talents to keeping our museum going while we have been displaced, and we are so thankful for them. My heart swells when I think of how much we've been able to accomplish during such an uncertain time in the life of the museum. This year, our board and executive board have not only continued to meet monthly, but we have been able to offer several events to the community on our own. We've also collaborated with other nonprofit organizations and groups in Kernersville and tried our very best to keep the museum's presence visible, despite being unable to welcome visitors into the Bellamy House at this time. Can I have the next slide, please? During the months of June through October, the museum was the host location for a monthly Kernersville craft market that was organized by Iaxa Maria's Gift Baskets. This collaboration brought vendors and visitors from Kernersville and beyond into our historic village, and in turn into downtown to eat, shop, and enjoy our offerings of this special little place. Next slide, please. In October, our board hosted our annual chicken stew fundraiser in the historic village. It was a beautiful evening that featured the delicious chicken stew goodness that only comes from the magic cast iron pots of John Burton. This stew was topped off so beautifully with desserts that were donated in collaboration with the Kernersville Women's Club. This was the first time in several years that we were able to welcome everyone back onto our campus to eat and fellowship together in a sit-down format. It was just such a beautiful sight to see so many people sharing tables and conversation in the historic village. Can I have the next slide, please? That same evening, the board brought back the speaker series and collaborated with the Kernersville Fire Department to kick off its 100th year anniversary and highlight Fire Prevention Month. It was so powerful to hear the firefighters of different generations recall stories that shaped Kernersville. We heard about personally haunting calls all the way to the tragic water tower incident that affected the entire town. I will say that I felt like everyone in attendance learned more about our town through the stories of these brave first responders. May I have the next slide, please? In November, the board decided to continue the museum's annual Hometown Christmas Extravaganza. Without any full-time staff, the programming had to be revamped a bit, but with a little creative thinking and a lot of hard work on the part of some very dedicated board members, we had a really successful season that brought many people into downtown for the most magical time of the year. December really was incredible. We continued our extremely popular Spirit of Christmas Tree Wonderland. The magical Kernersville Wish Tree here in the middle it's filled with handwritten wishes from all the visitors and people in the town. So I think that's just really neat. And it was surrounded by Christmas trees that were adopted and decorated by various businesses, organizations, and families in Kernersville. To say that it was a successful community building opportunity really feels like an understatement. Can I have the next slide, please? We collaborated with the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce on various holiday events, including the always popular Santa visit at the Weaning Cabin. We also continued to be a part of the Kernersville Yuletide celebration in collaboration with the Kerner Folly and the Senior Gardens. These events were so much fun and great exposure for our museum and our town. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. After much deliberation, we decided to bring back the ice skating rink this year, despite the challenge of not having any employees to oversee it or staff the endeavor. I am thrilled to say we were able to collaborate with the local Boy Scout troops to operate the rink as one of their fundraisers. It was a win-win for both organizations. The Scouts raised money for their projects, and we were able to keep people coming downtown to our campus consistently throughout the season. There is something that is just really magical about ice skating under the lights at Christmas time, and I am so pleased that we were able to offer this opportunity this year. Hometown Christmas was a beautiful way to cap off 2022. As I said earlier, it was not the year that we had expected, but I will dare say it was a year of great growth and opportunity in other ways. It still amazes me how much we've been able to accomplish as a completely volunteer-run organization, and I really am so proud of this board. I know I say it, but I can't say it enough. We've had hard conversations, we've made tough decisions, rolled up our sleeves, and we have persevered. The Kernersville Museum Foundation is a stronger organization for having weathered this past year. May I have the last slide, please? Thank you. I'm hopeful that once everything is said and done, the Bellamy House will also have a strong foundation that will serve to share, sustain, and celebrate the history of Kernersville for many years to come. Thank you again for the opportunity to share the 2022 State of the Kernersville Museum. It's such an honor to be a part of this organization, and we are so thankful for the town for all that you do to support and sustain the museum. Your help enables us to continue our mission of preserving our past, participating in our present, and shaping our town's future. Kernersville's history is safe and celebrated thanks in large part to you and your unwavering support. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions tonight that I can answer?
Question.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Kim, thank you, and of course I recognize you as not being Jim Taylor. And that, if you saw the slide, I'm sorry. May I ask a special favor? A number of members of your board are here tonight. Could I ask you please to stand up if you're a member of the board? Let's give these folks a hand. Thank you, Kim. There's so many people in town that give to our town in terms of their time and talents in so many ways. And thank you for choosing this to give your time and talent very much. If you saw the picture of the Bellamy House in the first slide, you would recognize immediately if that were the Kernersville Auto Museum, we could probably display one Mini Cooper and a small Fiat. So there's not enough room to do it there. But we do have now the founder of the Kernersville Auto Museum, Mr. Jim Taylor. And Jim, we'd love to hear from you. Please, sir.
I'm sorry I don't have any beautiful pictures to show you of those classic cars we have in the museum, but I'll do better next year. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Taylor. I'm the curator of the Kernersville Auto Museum. I have a few other chores there too, but I won't go into detail about that. But at any rate, thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening and give you a little update on what's going on at the Auto Museum. When I stood before you last year at this time, we had some rather ambitious goals, and quite honestly, I had mixed emotions about whether we could accomplish a lot of those because it was such a new thing. We'd never done it before. So it was a shot in the dark, so to speak. But I'm pleased to share with you this evening the good news. I feel that we have actually exceeded the expectations that we had with the museum during the 8 months from May through December. And if I may, at this time, take just a moment or two to share with you some statistics on the numbers. During that period of time, from May through December 2022, we had 1,088 visitors to sign our guest register at the museum. We estimate that at least 25% of the people that attended the museum did not sign the guest register because it's really, really difficult to get everyone to sign because you're back there showing the cars to someone and a group of people come in and they fail to sign. So we feel like that the number is somewhere in the area of 1,400 visitors during that 8-month period, which I think is astounding. Just getting started because we've had very little funds to market and to advertise, so it's been truly word of mouth. We finally later in the fall got our website up and going, and that has been immensely great for the museum because we're having people now that are traveling across country and they find out about the museum and they'll drive 100 miles out of the way just to come to the museum. It seems like over the past 8 months we've had visitors from almost every state in the union. Every week we have people from New York and California. They're here visiting with their families and loved ones, and the first thing they want to do is find something enjoyable to do with family members. So they wind up coming to the museum, and that's really been an outstanding enhancement for us. We had during that period of time also 4 local business events. Several banks had sessions at the museum. We've had 2 Boy Scout troops to visit with us, 3 Christmas parties, 2 nonprofit events, and numerous nursing homes and car club events. I wished I had some way to capture the expression of the faces of these young people who come into the museum and older people alike, because they're just fascinated by these old cars and the history behind them. As you know, last year I shared with you our vision, and that was to educate and to inspire young people to help them understand the history of these old cars and how valuable and what a major role they played in the development of our country and our nation and the world as far as that goes. And I think we've accomplished a lot of that. Just this past weekend before last, we had a large group from one of the nursing homes to come in. And one of the older gentlemen in a wheelchair, he called me to come over to him, and he said, "You just don't know what this has meant to me today. This absolutely has been the best day I've had in months," and with tears in his eyes. So when you see something like that, it makes it all worthwhile. It really does. But enough said about 2022. Let's talk a little bit about 23. We're off to a really good start. I've had several people to tell me the first of the year, well, you don't really need to be open in January and February. It's too cold. People won't come out. That's not right at all. In fact, we've had better attendance in January and February than we did in November and December. So it's been outstanding. But we're off to a really, really good start. We have a number of events scheduled at the museum. In fact, this past Saturday, we had a birthday party there. We had over 125 people to attend this birthday party, and they all had a really great time. They just couldn't say enough good things about the facility and the cars and how well it served that purpose. This coming Saturday week, 2 weeks from Saturday, the Shepherd Center, whom we all love so much, are having their annual fundraiser there at the museum. And we're expecting, they tell me, maybe 200 to 250 people there. So I hope if all of you have a chance to come by, that would be great to support them. The Kernersville Foundation is also considering their annual meeting there. In fact, they're having a board meeting there even tomorrow. We have sent out 12 letters to the local schools inviting the kids to come in for field trip days during the spring, and we're having good response from that. The Chamber of Commerce are having a ladies' business day. I believe it's sometime in June. Date hasn't been confirmed yet, but they're expecting about 50 people for that event. So things are really, really looking up for this year. I'm really excited about the collaboration that we are having or going to have with the Kernersville Museum, the Botanical Gardens, and with the Folly. During a meeting just several weeks ago, I met with Susanna and Adrian, and we all agreed that we would take our websites and link the organizations together, which I think is going to be outstanding. In addition to that, we're going to have brochures at each of the facilities that we hand out to visitors. When visitors come to the Auto Museum, we'll be giving them brochures on the Folly and the Kernersville Museum, and as well as the Botanical Gardens. And so we're really excited about the collaboration that we're going to be having this year with our nonprofits. So I think you'll see a lot of things accomplished by that. And I hope you feel as good as I do about the success we've had for the first year or the first 8 months at the museum. It is really beginning to be a very popular tourist attraction for our community. I've had so many people to come in and say, what a tremendous asset this is for the town of Kernersville, and they're right. They understand that. So I trust that this gives you a little better insight as to what we're doing at the museum, and I can't say enough about the support that you've given us so far, and we truly appreciate that from the bottom of our heart. And if there's any questions that anyone might have at this time, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Do any of the members of the board have any questions this time? If not, Mr. Taylor, I want to simply say to you that I've visited your museum. As you know, I think the count is now 4 times.
Right.
And folks, if you haven't seen it, you really need to see it. It is amazing. It has become already, I think, a destination venue for Kernersville. And we're blessed to have several of those. The Folly, of course, the Paul J. Senior Botanical Gardens, the Carolina Field of Honor, Ivy Redmond Park, and now the Kernersville Auto Museum that will attract people to come to our community and visit and stay and dine. And so, Jim, thank you for your creativity and
You're very
building your
welcome.
museum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just make an observation for those of you watching on the live stream, and those of you in the room, that if you click on the agenda for this meeting, you'll see the links that are in blue there. We're not just hearing the verbal reports in making funding decisions and receiving the report. If you click on those, there's a copy of the full report on the year's activities and the plans for the year to come for each of the organizations listed there. So, and we invite you to look at the agenda and take a look and find out even more detail about what these great organizations are doing. Okay, at this time I'll turn to Lisa Miller, I guess, with the Senior Center.
Good evening. I am Lisa Miller. I'm the Senior Center Director for the Shepherd Center of Kernersville. And with me tonight, I have Lisa Bugg, who is our board president, and Frank Robbins, who is our first vice president of our board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you once again to talk about our year. It was a tremendous year for us of growth. We have been in our new facility now just a little over a year, which is located at 636 Grayland Street. Last year, we added additional programs to our regular program schedule. These are the activities that we offer daily, weekly, and monthly. And then we even increased the number of special programs that we offer, and these are those activities that happen once a year. Or on a not so regular basis. We grew 110% from 1,426 programs in 2021 to 2,994 programs last year. Because we increased the number of programs, we were able to increase the number of participants that we saw, growing from 1,816 to 2,656 last year. Those who participated in our program visited the Senior Center and the Shepherd Center offices over 18,000 times, and that showed an increase in growth of 121%. In July of last year, we began to track the number of new participants and returning participants. And returning participants would be those that we had not seen even before the pandemic hit in 2020. And we saw 238 new participants in that 6-month period and 62 returning participants. As an organization, we added 70 new volunteers and 73 new service recipients last year. Our programs include a variety of programming that falls into about 4 different categories: an arts and creative programming, life enrichment and education programs, health and wellness, and then more of your fun and games and social activities. Some of those regular ongoing programs include a weekly acoustic music jam. If you love music, I encourage you to come out on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock. Lasts about an hour and a half. The public is invited to come, and we have anywhere from 10 to 15 musicians who just get together and play, and we can sometimes have up to 20, 25 people listening to them. We have some of our other artistic endeavors are an open paint studio, basket weaving class, watercolor lessons, quilting, needle arts. On the fitness side of things, we offer dance lessons, chair exercise, tai chi, and chair yoga. Our monthly socials, luncheons, parties, and card games like pinochle, bridge, and hand and foot are more of a social and fun and game side. And then our computer learning center, it's where individuals can come to the center by appointment, and they can have their smartphones, laptops, tablets looked at, learn how to use those devices or have them repaired. And in some cases, we can bring dead devices back to life. And last year in this computer lab, we served 130 different individuals. And I believe it was over 500 different appointments that we had for them. Our new and ongoing programs that we implemented last year, we added a new chair yoga class for beginners. We added an additional meeting date for our monthly caregiver support group. They're now meeting twice a month. We added ukulele lessons, crochet lessons, knitting lessons, pickleball lessons, a recipe share time, and then even beginner square dance lessons. One of our most popular programs that we have at the center is actually a jigsaw puzzle library. It's where we offer hundreds of puzzles to anyone in the community can stop by and borrow. And what's been really neat about it is there are even simple puzzles in that library that some of our caregivers borrow and can go back, and with a loved one that they're taking care of with the dementia, it provides an activity that they can do together and engage in together. In January of this year, you can see a lady in that picture there sitting at a table. We added the community puzzle table back. And we were kind of hesitant about it because you know what we've all been through over the past couple of years. But what we've discovered is how beneficial that table is. People are socializing over it. They're engaging over that table. But it's also a great transition activity between activities and programs that we're having. We're finding that people are lingering longer at the facility, and that they'll stay at that puzzle table between activities, and it's actually encouraging them to attend programs that follow whatever's happening in that break time. We're seeing a growing interest and demand for social, arts and creative, and health and wellness programs. When it comes to our special programs, especially activities that require movement and cooking. It seems cooking has become a very popular thing. Some of these special programs we offered last year to great success were our Coffee with a Cop. We had a veterans coffee. We provided health screenings for blood pressure, falls prevention, and memory loss. Cooking classes. We had a successful ribbon cutting with the chamber last year. We celebrated our first anniversary with a week full of activities. We offered managing grief through the holidays, elder law workshops, a Kernersville new business development program, and then a walking tour of the St. Paul Cemetery. And this year, since January, we've already added, out of those ukulele lessons, the folks that learn to play have formed a ukulele band. And we're going to add additional veterans coffees this year, more health screenings, and coming up next Friday, if I can say this without, it's a tongue twister, Single Seniors Mingle, which is an evening social activity that will be held next Friday night in partnership with Leadership Kernersville and the Chamber of Commerce, and there will be plans to offer those on a quarterly basis. We'll continue to optimize our space and add more regular and special programming as the year progresses. Some of our programs are offered virtually through Zoom and Facebook Live to reach those who are homebound and isolated. We offer many hybrid programs where if something's being offered on site live, we're able to broadcast it through Zoom or Facebook Live. And some of those classes are our yoga classes. We've done that with some cooking demonstrations and some of the lectures that we've had. We'll continue to offer programs this way, and any program that we do offer that might be 100% virtual, we broadcast it at the center so that if anybody who's not comfortable with the technology, they're always welcome to come and watch that on site with us. One of our most favorite programs and something that we're so pleased to be able to bring back is our intergenerational programming. And we work with two local fourth grade classes, one at Caleb's Creek Elementary School and one at Cash Elementary School. We have a pen pal program with Miss Badgett's fourth grade class at Caleb's Creek Elementary, where our older adults and these students trade letters throughout the school year. And today her class was actually at the center. We had a luncheon where the pen pals and the student actually got to meet over lunch and play bingo together. So this concludes that particular program for this school year, and they were able to engage and finally meet each other face to face. And then Mrs. Hall's class at Cash Elementary reached out to us, and they come and play bingo at the senior center. They were here with us last fall, and about 2 weeks ago, they were back on campus with us. And we hope to be able to take some aging sensitivity training into the classrooms at Caleb's Creek and Cash Elementary School, to where these students can learn about aging issues and what it's like to be an older adult and some of the challenges that older adults might face. Last year, again, we provided income tax return preparation for low to moderate income individuals. When many of the tax sites across our area still were not opening or chose not to open due to COVID protocols, we were able to open. We work with our local AARP Foundation Tax Aid Program so that we can safely offer this service, and we serve about 90% of the clientele we serve are older adults, and about a third of them are minorities. We've been able to retain nearly all of our tax volunteers over the years, and this year we have added to our volunteer base for this program. Last year we were able to offer tax preparation on site February through early April as a modified same-day in-person drop-off model. The folks would drop their tax returns off, we would prepare them while they waited in the car, and then they would come back in and review that with our tax preparers. And we served over 700 clients last year. This year, we're back to in-person, face-to-face appointments with our clients, and after 1 month of appointments during the month of February, we've already served over 690 clients. The quality and quantity of the programs that we are able to provide our community could not be possible without the many volunteers that we have. And this, I'm only speaking on the side of programming. This is not all of the Shepherd Center volunteers, but on the programming side, we had 84 volunteers who provided 9,000 hours of volunteer service for us to help us pull off the programs that we were able to conduct. And we collaborated with 91 businesses, churches, organizations, or individuals to provide these programs as well. Through our durable medical equipment loan program, we loan out all types of things, mostly mobility equipment, standard and upright walkers, your typical rollator walkers. We offer standard and transport wheelchairs, as well as some specialized wheelchairs, canes, crutches, those types of things. And last year we loaned 418 pieces of equipment to 270 individuals. All of the equipment that we loan has been donated to us by members of our community. And we're able to then turn around and loan that out at no cost to the person who needs it for as long as they need it. In addition to our program statistics, we thought that it might be nice to show you a snapshot of the other services that the Shepherd Center offers to our community. And I just wanted to share a little bit with you that last year we conducted 4,428 one-way rides for 163 transportation recipients. We delivered bouquets of flowers or sent greeting cards through our Project Joyman service to 737 individuals. And that's for things like birthdays, family celebrations, special anniversaries, a death in the family or illness, or maybe we just haven't seen someone in a while and we want to reach back out to them. We assisted 55 people through our handy person service, and those 55 individuals provided 75 minor home repairs. We made 6,431 friendly caller weekly calls to homebound recipients for a wellness check or just a friendly hello. 359 person-to-person visits to relieve caregivers or to provide socialization for those who are homebound and isolated, and those were provided for 20 different families or individuals. We provided 294 pharmacy prescription pickups or grocery store or food pantry pickups and order fulfillments for 57 individuals. Our fundraising efforts were still a bit challenging for us, but we're hopeful that as we progress through this year that will get better. We hosted our third annual chili sale at Prissy Polly's in January and February. We also sold Mama's chicken pies in the spring, held a creative arts retreat in the fall, and as an organization, the Shepherd Center was able to host our annual golf tournament as well as 2 annual fundraising campaigns. And this year so far, we've held our annual chili sale again and are looking forward to our Kernersville Classic that Mr. Taylor mentioned just a little while ago at the Kernersville Auto Museum on March 25th, and are working on possibly renting of our meeting spaces, and in addition to the golf tournament again this year in our annual campaigns. This spring, we will survey our regular participants and non-participants through 2 different printed and e-blast surveys, and this will provide us with input on programming, and the other survey will be a satisfaction and outcome survey to measure not only how well we are doing, but to determine the impact that we're making on the lives of the folks that we serve. We conduct these surveys annually, and last year we learned that we had a pretty good return rate. Most people said that we were providing excellent or very good programs and services to our community, and that they were pleased with the volunteer opportunities that we had as well. I want to thank you for your continued support of the Senior Center programming for the Shepherd Center of Kernersville. The funding you provide it will be continued to be used for our general operating purposes to cover our program, personnel, office, and other operating costs, so that we may continue to offer excellent programming and activities for adults who are aging or with disabilities at no cost or at a minimal cost. Your strong investment in our aging population will enable us to maintain as well as increase these vital activities in our community. So thank you very much for your support. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those at this time.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any questions? I have a couple of comments, Lisa, and then a couple of questions too.
Okay.
One is, are there any age or income limitations to qualify one for participating in your programs at the Senior Center?
Yeah. We use 50 and over as the age. The only program that income is tied to, or activity or service, is the tax aid preparation. And they say low to moderate, and that changes year to year. So it's basically less, I want to say 80,000 or less a year for an individual or a family. But that's it, because when you can't drive, you can't drive. Or if you can't fix something, a minor home repair, sometimes your needs and income aren't tied together like that. But so for the services side of things, it is not tied to that, no.
Well, it's generally a valuable public-private partnership that if we as a town were inclined to provide those services or had to do so, it would be much more costly than your programs with the so many volunteers helping with that. So you're just extremely important to this town. I'll share with you an experience I had. Lisa invited me to come and meet with the seniors for lunch one day. And first of all, it's a great new facility if you haven't seen it, but I went armed with about 7 or 8 bullet points to talk about. We didn't get to my bullet points because almost by the time we finished saying grace, hands went up, and they were tough questions like, why is my rent going up so much? I didn't have an answer for that one. We talked a little bit about it, but the fact of the matter is it is an extremely engaged group of participants over there, and it's a great program. It's obviously growing, demand is high, and we just thank you for what you do for the community.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, at this time, I'll recognize the Senior Services representative.
So thank you, Lisa, for that great report. There's no doubt after hearing that Kernersville is a great place to age.
Would you please introduce yourself?
I will certainly do that. I am Lee Covington, and it's my privilege to serve as the President and CEO for Senior Services. Our main office is located at 2895 Shorefair Drive in Winston-Salem, and we're proud to serve all of Forsyth County. I want to start by reminding everyone here as to why we exist and why we've existed since 1962, which was the founding of our Meals on Wheels program. And it's really about helping Forsyth County's older adults, particularly older adults who are living with frailty, to remain in their homes for as long as possible, living with dignity and aging with purpose. And we do that through a variety of means. Next slide, please. We also do that with the assistance of an army of volunteers, more than 1,600 volunteers who assisted us with that mission last year, and that volunteer base continues to grow. We've got an amazing staff of 115 folks, 60 board members who give of their time freely, and more than 3,000 donors who help us bring this mission to life each and every day. Our mission involves 8 programs. Perhaps the best known is Meals on Wheels, which has been around here in Forsyth County for 60 years. We're one of the oldest continuously operating Meals on Wheels programs in the country, and the oldest in the Southeast region. And you'll see the other programs there. Perhaps our next best known is our Williams Adult Day Center, serving older adults living with frailty. And you'll see that our current budget this year is just over $8 million. Let's talk a little bit about last year. Next slide. So we served almost 2,500 older adults across Forsyth County. We provided or contracted for more than 365,000 hours of in-home nursing and non-medical personal care. We provided over 240,000 meals to older adults living with frailty, 16,000 pounds of grocery items delivered to their homes. Our Williams Adult Day Center provided more than 20,000 days of respite and activity programming to older adults, which translated into caregiver relief for family caregivers who are providing those much needed services. Our Aging Resources team responded to more than 15,000 requests for information and referral. And that army of volunteers that I mentioned provided more than 42,000 hours of volunteer support. If we put a dollar amount to that, that's well over $1 million in donated volunteer time. Without that, we simply couldn't do what we do each year. Next slide. So last year here in Kernersville, we were proud to support 306 older adults, again, older adults living with frailty, and that represents a little over 12% of that total group of folks that we served. If we look at the numbers we're currently serving, it's 247. And as you might imagine with these programs, folks come and go depending on their needs. And so the current number is 247, but we anticipate the total served during this year to be equal to or above that 306 number. And you see the breakdown of those various programs here in Kernersville. So we have 143 folks currently receiving home-delivered meals, Meals on Wheels, 5 days a week. Our senior lunch site, which is located at Kerner Place, is currently serving 40 folks. We're supporting 22 people in their homes, providing certified nursing assistance and non-medical home care. Our Living at Home, which is a CAP-DA Medicaid waiver program, currently serves 23 people here in Kernersville. And we have 19 folks from Kernersville coming into our Williams Adult Day Center on a regular basis. The support from the town of Kernersville has helped to make this possible. This current year, we were thrilled to receive a $15,000 grant from the town, and that helped us to sustain the 9 Meals on Wheels routes that we have here in Kernersville, as well as the senior lunch site at the Kerner Place Apartments. Looking ahead, as you all know, cost of everything has increased, and food is certainly not immune to those costs. And so in our request, we've included a modest increase to $16,500 to help us offset part of that increase in the food costs so that we can continue to serve that same number of people with Meals on Wheels. Last year when I stood before you, I invited you to attend the groundbreaking in April for our new Intergenerational Center for Arts and Wellness. You see the artist rendering there on the screen. And I'm thrilled to let you know that it's now more than an artist rendering. If you'll advance to the next slide. What you see there is a photo that was taken yesterday morning. And most of the steel structure for that 62,000 square foot Intergenerational Center for Arts and Wellness is in place. We hope to hoist the final beam in place on March 24th. And so that'll be another great milestone. Next slide. So what you see on the screen now is a list of partnering organizations that have engaged with senior services and will be providing programs and services in this new intergenerational center. The ones that are in blue, and I know they're small, so it's hard to read, but there are 9 organizations, including us, who will be in dedicated space in this new building. And the other organizations that you see listed there will bring their programs and services into the building utilizing about 20,000 square feet of shared space. So once this building is complete in September, it will be unlike any other in the United States. There's simply nothing like this anywhere, and we're building on the strengths of Forsyth County to make this possible and the great reputations of all those organizations that you see there. We hope to continue to find creative ways to serve the needs of Kernersville residents in this new center. At this time, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have.
Members of the board, are there any questions? I have one. Can you explain to us how your organization, how Senior Services integrates with Second Harvest Food Bank? A lot of us have heard of Second Harvest Food Bank, and perhaps more than may have heard of Senior Services as a separate entity. Would you tell us about that?
Absolutely, great question. And if you don't know, Second Harvest is our new neighbor. Their address is also now Shore Fair Drive. We're at one end and they're at the other. It's a short 2-block street. And so we're thrilled to have them in their new facility. If you haven't seen their new facility, I would encourage you to go over there. It's fantastic. So we currently partner with them in several ways. Our grocery program that I mentioned earlier is a great partnership with the food bank. So many of the grocery items that we're able to deliver to homebound seniors come from the food bank directly. We partner with them in a couple of other ways, and in fact, they're one of the partners in the new building. They will actually have a cafe space in the new building that we're calling Generations Cafe, and their Providence Culinary Training Program will be based in that Generations Cafe. So that's a new partnership for us. We're also beginning now to explore partnership with the food bank as to how they can provide some of the meals that we may need to meet the needs of homebound seniors.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
You know, it strikes me that the presentations we're hearing tonight are just another example of our people in Kernersville and Forsyth County being good neighbors. You'd be amazed how many of the issues that this board has the privilege of dealing with on a regular basis all boil down to just being good neighbors. So the organizations we hear from tonight are among the best neighbors that we could possibly have. So thank you very much. We have our 5th presentation, Next Step Ministries, please.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity again this year to come before the board and to share our ministry with you and our organization, and to kind of tell you what we've been doing and what you all have been supporting. So I am Patty Sorrells. I'm the Executive Director of Next Step Ministries. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can't see otherwise as well. So
Thank you again so much for allowing us to come tonight. And I've brought one of my staff members this time. This is Alex Hicks, who is our program coordinator. She oversees the shelter operations and the advocacy programs. She's been with me for 3 years, so we are a team. And I really just wanted her to be a part of this to see what this is like. When you think about succession planning, you hire younger and smarter, and then you train them so that when you leave, they're right on board. So I just thank you for all you're doing and being here with us tonight. So if you'll go to the next screen, please. So some of this is going to be a little bit familiar to you, except for that last year we did tell you that we were going to be adding sexual assault services. And so you'll see in our mission statement that we in fact do provide refuge, advocacy, education to survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and the broader community. So we have in fact done that. And oftentimes people want to know how we actually fulfill that mission of what we do. Sometimes mission statements are very broad, and so this is going to help you to understand a little bit more about what we have. Of course, most of you are familiar with the fact that we have a safe house, and this is where, of course, guests come to us when they are in immediate danger and they need a safe place to be. We provide the guests with food and clothing, transportation where necessary, case management to help them get to their next step, and resource referrals as far as program referrals and other things that they might need that we don't provide. So I love what you said, Mr. Apple, about the neighbors. We depend on our neighbors, and we work very closely with them for those resources. Of course, we have our 24/7 crisis hotline. And this is where we conduct all of our danger assessments and find out just exactly what people are actually needing. And it is our portal of entry to all of our services. And as we sent in the statistics for our crisis calls, we went up this year in 2022 to 2,009 crisis calls. And it seems we continue to grow as word gets around that we're available and that we provide that service. So our numbers are in fact growing. Our victim advocacy receives our domestic violence and sexual reports from CID at KPD and responds to requests for support from local hospitals and medical centers and provides initial assessments of needs. They also provide domestic violence and sexual assault education and assist clients with navigating the judicial system and attends court with victims. They assist with the 50B, which is the protective orders and filing for victims' compensation, and provides all the case management services to non-residential victims. I'd like to take the opportunity to say right here how much I appreciate Kernersville Police Department. They are at our table and on our board, and we work very closely with them. They have brought us in on a partnership and has worked very closely, and I will also say thank you to Captain Tilley for bringing us in to start providing some training with the police officers. So we work very closely with them because we are also working with the same folks oftentimes. And then our case management provides ongoing victim advocacy through goal setting, action planning, safety planning, resource referrals, domestic violence and sexual assault education, advocates on behalf of the client with other agencies in our county and in our state, which may include securing housing, financial assistance, counseling, job applications, and court assistance. So they do a lot to try to help the folks that we work with to get to that next step, so that they're also not staying in our safe house for long terms. We are not a transitional housing. We are for short term, and we are hoping to get people to a safe place and a place that they can, bring back some normalcy into their life and move on to that next chapter. In our resource center, we offer ongoing support groups. Some of those are the economic empowerment groups, educational workshops on domestic violence, breaking the cycle of violence and prevention, and resource referrals, and then the community education presentations. So we do a lot with our churches and our other organizations. In our workshops, we have people coming from Truist who does some financial advising, some financial assistance. So we work with several different types of businesses and organizations to provide those resources for people so that they can be empowered to go on to the next step. And that usually is the most difficult thing for people, is to find out, what can I do to get out of this situation? They feel so hopeless. And this helps them to have that opportunity to see who's actually out there offering help. We provide educational presentations and workshops on domestic violence and sexual assault, and participate in community events as vendor, and utilize our fundraising events as awareness opportunities as well. And then most people are very familiar with our thrift store, as it's kind of our public face. The thrift store offers our clients an opportunity to shop for clothing and housewares that they may need to start over in their new home or to go on to that next step. The thrift store provides about 45% of Next Step Ministries' revenue stream, and the store sells used and gently used items at affordable prices for the community's Kernersville community. And I will tell you that we are hearing so many compliments and so many thank yous. We have a new manager, and she's just done amazing things. She has increased our volunteers, and we now have volunteers Monday through Saturday, every day. And it has really changed the processing. We hear that volunteers are coming back. We hear some things about our community customers, and she's just doing an amazing job. And she's also implemented the mission and making sure that people understand what the thrift store is all about and what it supports and why it supports that. So that's been very, very important to us. If you can go on to partnerships. There we go. Thank you. So as I've mentioned before, Kernersville Police Department is one of our strong partnerships. And I have always said, I've done this work for many, many decades now, but we have to have law enforcement involvement. They may not need us, but we certainly need them. And we're so thankful that our Kernersville Police Department is so amazing. I have worked with other counties, and I have worked in law enforcement myself, and I just cannot say enough about what they have done to come alongside of us and help us with the things that we're trying to do in helping the clients that we work with. So you should be very proud of our Kernersville Police Department. The local churches have really come around. We have more local church support than we've ever had, and numbers of them have asked us to come and do presentations and do what we call professional trainings with the staff, and that's part of their security teams for those that have that, and that's also for ministry staff, so that they know how to better approach domestic violence and sexual assault, and then knowing what we can provide, we become a resource for them as well. Second Harvest Food Bank. So I'm glad you asked about that. Crisis Control, we've really worked closely with them. Kathy and her staff have been amazing, and they provide something that we certainly cannot provide. So we work really closely with them. The Shepherd Center, we've done some presentations with them. This past year, one of our goals was to focus on the aging population, and that's what we did in 2022. Food Line is a partnership. Sheets provides a food donation. Green Nest we work with for furniture. We've been involved with the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce, and I can't say enough nice things about Chris Comer. I know she's here, but I would say that if she wasn't. And then the next slide, please. The Continuum Care in Forsyth County, the Family Justice Center. Some people know them as formerly the Safe on 7. But we work closely with them. Domestic Violence Community Council and Sexual Assault Response Team. We're in those meetings every month in this county. Neighborhood partnerships within our region of the North Carolina Council for Women. They are one of our major grant funders. And so we work very closely with our sister safe houses so that if someone is in this community and they are in danger and their abuser has found them, we move them to another county so he cannot find them. And then vice versa, they'll do the same thing. So we work very closely together to ensure the safety of women, men, and children. We work with World Relief and human trafficking. From time to time, we might have to provide housing. And then also when we find out information from the folks that we work with, if there's been some human trafficking in their life, then we, of course, refer them to World Relief. We work with the VA Hospital Medical Center here in Kernersville, Legal Aid, the Kellen Foundation, which is a counseling center, and then also Kernersville Counseling Center. So we have a couple of memorandums of understanding so that we can work together with other agencies that provide either the same services that we do or other services. I'd like to give you some testimony because I think it really brings to life what it is that we do, and then also how our partnerships are so valuable to making sure that, people are getting the help that they need, and we're not looking at another homicide. So this particular victim of domestic violence, I'm just going to read this. It's just a little bit easier to read. And this is both residential and non-residential clients. So a mom of a 12-year-old child from Kernersville called the crisis line during an active domestic violence situation. The staff was able to contact, and this is new. Last year, I think I shared something similar, but very different case. Staff was able to contact the Kernersville Police Department and ensure that they received emergency assistance. And the staff stayed on the line with the mom and child until the police showed up. After police intervention, they were able to come and stay at the Next Step Ministries Safe House, where they received assistance with establishing their goals and their next steps. When they left our residential program, they transitioned into safe housing. And then we continue to provide non-residential services by assisting them through Thanksgiving and providing angel tree gifts during the holidays. So we work with them long term. We don't just say, okay, you're gone, we're done. You know, we stay with them, contact a 30, 60, 90 day afterwards. And then if they still need support group services or education or resources, we continue to provide that as they need it. So for one of our non-residential client success stories, this one happened in June of 2022. A woman came to Next Step Ministries through the Kernersville Police Department. Notice that's our partner. Staff worked with her and provided court advocacy and accompaniment for criminal court and for protective order renewal hearing. Staff was able to provide her with a gas card, financial literacy education, safety planning, and self-care items. And she continues to attend support groups and the monthly workshops. She's one that her credit has completely changed. She's now been able to find an apartment and purchase a vehicle and is fully employed. And that's something that is amazing for people who have been under the control of another human being, who are normally not allowed to have car, finances, jobs, any of those kinds of things. And for the victims of domestic violence, it's very daunting to think that they can't survive unless they stay under that kind of abuse. So her testimony was this, and this is her quote. "I was a victim of domestic violence for several years, and now I'm a survivor. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused during many years, and finally decided I could no longer cover the bruises from the physical abuse, nor the emotional pain that came from the verbal abuse. So I decided to leave. That day was also the day that he planned to take my life and then his, but thankfully the plan failed. I was granted a 50B, and for a year was granted the 50B, and after 6 violations, he was finally arrested, but it took 6 times violating before he was actually arrested. And that's when Christina with Next Step Ministries reached out to me and allowed me to open up, and has been by my side and voice throughout the entire court processes, hosting monthly workshops, and most importantly, invited me to join the Orchard, which is our support group. I would not be here and not be where I am today without the support of Next Step Ministries. I strongly encourage anyone who finds themselves in an abusive relationship to reach out for help, develop a safety plan, and find the strength and courage to safely leave. It can be the most dangerous time in their life, but support is available, and I promise you, you are not alone." So she has gone on to talk about her exit and how much it has meant to her that she's had the service, and she continues to provide to go through our services that we provide so that she can have that long-term support. It's not over in just a day, a month, or 2 months. If you could go to the next slide, please. One more. Thank you. So how do we do this? How do we address domestic violence and sexual assault? Well, the story is the same. It's intervention and it's prevention. And we've always been very good at serving and providing intervention, but prevention is, in my opinion, just as powerful and just as important as the intervention piece. And so we do provide that crisis line, that safe house, and that advocacy. But the prevention comes into community education, working with our partnerships, and developing community response teams. Next slide, please. So how are we doing? Well, this is the second year in a row that I've presented and worked through these outcome measurements that we've developed. And in our safety planning, we have met 100% of that. The client satisfaction is at 91%. And our community engagement and our plans have been at 100%. So we met all of our goals that we wanted to do in 2022 for our community engagement. Our 2022 stats are that we had 62 guests at the Safe House. 67 children were served through all of our services. That's non-residential and residential. Assisted 190 non-residential clients. Remember, last year was one of our first years at working towards those statistics and working in that non-residential position. And so that's really increasing, and that's being increased by the services and referrals from KPD, from our churches, and some of our other community organizations. We provided crisis intervention services for 2,009 individuals who called our crisis line. And we've actually worked with 9 sexual assault victims served, and that does include at least one child. So we are launching that sexual assault program, and this is our year that we're really going to see that grow. And then of our clients that we worked with, 116 clients are in Kernersville, and that number has increased since last year. The goals that we met in 2022, if you'll go to the next slide, thank you, increased our community education opportunities. We just had so many people calling us and saying, could you come to us and tell us a little bit about what you do? And so it's just so nice to hear that our neighbors and people that we are working with are calling us and finding out about us. And that lets us know that the word is getting out, that people are hearing about Next Step Ministries. We researched and expanded our services to include sexual assault advocacy. That's a really big deal, and all the work that I've done over the, I guess now, decades, to have a domestic violence program, you should always have a sexual assault program that goes with it, because many times your DV clients are also sexual assault victims. We continued to increase our professional training of staff, and some of that was recently with Kernersville Police Department. We doubled our volunteer base towards the end of the year. Just alone in January of this year compared to last year, we had just over 300 volunteer hours, and this year in January we had 754. And it has made a huge difference in our thrift store, but it's also something that we're doing that we've not done before, and that is professionally training volunteers to be on the crisis line and to assist in the Safe House, more than just transportation. And volunteers, as I said, is now assisting on the crisis line and in the Safe House. So our goals for 2023 is, again, to increase those partnerships and resources that are relevant to services for sexual assault victims. One of the most difficult places to get referrals from are your hospitals. So across the state of North Carolina, many of us are working really hard to develop those relationships. Years ago, it was much easier. They called us all the time. That has changed. Sometimes it's just, the change of nature. Sometimes it's legislation. And sometimes it's just that people aren't educated. So we have some work to do there. Increase our prevention services through our partnerships and community education. This is a never-ending goal for us, because we certainly need to continue to educate our community so that we're hopefully one day working ourselves out of a job. So far that hasn't happened, but that is certainly the goal. And then to increase community education opportunities to underserved populations. So we are always looking at the demographics of Kernersville and where do we need to go to reach those folks. Last year, again, it was the aging population, and we had some really good experiences with that. Our infrastructure is changing a little bit, so when I've asked for a small increase this year, we have been a very small staff doing a very large job. And so this year we really need a case manager at both the Safe House and in our offices with their non-residential guests and clients that we have, because we are also expanding sexual assault services. We also now have to expand our support group services and our workshops. We've had one person doing that, and so we have to be really careful not to burn our staff out. And then we have just the idea that we, in our Safe House, we have done some children's activities, but this year we're coming up with a children's programming advocate who will do nothing but specialize in providing those services for children. So support groups are not the same for children. but services and activities are really important, and education is really important. What I know after having done this, like I said, for decades, is that what we are seeing coming in are victims who have grown up in generational homes of domestic violence. And if you can reach those kids, hopefully you can stop some of that cycle, and it becomes not the big problem that it continues to be. So our goal is always to do that prevention and to reach those young people who might find themselves in those circumstances. And then the other aspect of that is dating violence. I don't know if you're familiar with what's happening with our children, but what used to be issues for older teenagers are now issues for children who are 9 and 10. And so we have a huge responsibility to educate parents and teachers and social workers, and to educate our churches and our community on what our young people are going through and why it's important that they understand what is sexual abuse and what is sexual assault. So we have much work to do. We do feel like we're just kind of on the cusp of that. Every time we get through one year, we think, gosh, we've come so far. And then we look ahead and think we have so far to go. So your continued support of Next Step Ministries is greatly appreciated. We're very humble by what you have given us, and hope that you'll support us again this year. So thank you so much for everything that you've done to help us out. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions on part of the board? Okay. I have one question, Patty. Yes, I'm sorry, Joe. Excuse me.
I really don't have a question, but listening to these 5 people tonight, I'll tell you, as a citizen of Kernersville, you can't help but gush with pride about what we have in this town. I mean, we have, from our police department to our fire department helped 7 families this weekend that were displaced by a fire. You heard what the police department has been doing with Next Step Ministries. And out here we heard a presentation from our museum board, who was really, through no fault of anybody, was blindsided this year. They lost a director, they had COVID they had to deal with, and they had a structural problem in their house, in their museum. And all of that was dealt with by unpaid volunteers from the town of Kernersville. I mean, they took it upon themselves to keep that museum open and going, and it will be thriving. And you had a gentleman in the audience, Jim Taylor, who had a dream to build a museum. And he built his automobile museum. One guy. And now he's asking for a little help too. But it just shows what a special town can do. There are not many towns like this that you can find anymore. In this day and time, the bad news we read is just horrendous. And then you think how lucky we are to live in a town that truly loves and helps people. I appreciate all of these people, and thank you for all you do. It's a wonderful town to live in.
It really is. It's a great town to work in. And we've had some of our clients decide to settle here instead of other towns because they felt safe here, and they did feel loved by the community. So we're just really thankful that we can actually say that. And I've worked in other large counties and other large agencies, and you can't really say that. So I appreciate Kernersville very much.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well said, Alderman Penix. Thank you very much. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, if you will, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Okay, the next item on our agenda tonight is subparagraph D, consideration of a resolution setting the date of a public hearing to consider closing Moravian Lane. Now, let me clarify something I think our board members are aware of this, but let me clarify something for the general public. What's on the agenda tonight is simply and only setting a date for the public hearing. This is not the public hearing tonight. We frankly, I think, setting the date is something that we should do, that we need to do, so that we can hear from everybody who has an opinion about this, and we will. So don't take the fact that we're not listening to comments tonight on setting the date, but we'll just be doing that as a procedural matter, okay? All right. Curtis, I guess that's something we need to hear from you on, please, sir.
Yeah, and you said one part of what I was going to cover. It is simply a resolution to set the public hearing, so there really should not be any comment or discussion tonight on whether or not it's a good idea to close the road or leave the road open. That will be, if the board chooses, that will be at the public hearing, at which point it will be advertised as a public hearing. I think it runs for 4 weeks. And then at that point is when you will have citizens. It'll be just like any other public hearing on any rezoning, on any budget matter. When you adopt the budget, those folks then will come in. You'll have those speaking in favor and those against. So tonight, as you well said, is just for whether or not to have that public hearing, to basically hear the public that are for and that are against this item.
And at that hearing, each side will have 20 minutes?
20, is that correct, Keith? 20 minutes at that public hearing?
Yes, it's a public hearing, so each side would have 20 minutes.
Yeah, and they'll follow the same protocol as a zoning case.
Okay.
So if the board chooses to adopt that or adopt this resolution, that's when you will hear that. I do have one thing the board asked me to check into, or a couple of things the board asked me to check into, so I will tell you tonight, and I'll be glad to go over it again if the board so chooses to have a public hearing. But not knowing what will happen, I'll tell you tonight, the board asked me to find out basically if it is a town-owned street. So if it is, then we obviously have the authority to close that street. And if it's not, then this is a moot point. We did have a title search conducted on that. We had an attorney out in West Salem and used some of the information that Mr. Grubbs had found. Went in a little further on that title search. It is a town-owned street. So the town is following the right protocol. If they choose to close this street, you would have the public hearing, and then you will vote at that public hearing whether or not to close it. So it is a town-owned street. The town does have the authority to do that. Secondly, I have talked with DOT. There were some questions about cross-connector streets. DOT said that would be basically up to the town whether to use this as a cross-connector street. I will tell you that they indicated it is not wide enough to be a two-way cross-connector street. So if the opportunity really ever came up that Main and Mountain or Main and Cherry, were one-way streets, that this would need to really be a one-way connector street, because I think it's 12 or 14 foot wide. So it really is not really wide enough to have cars going both ways on that street, as you all are probably aware as you tried to drive down it. So I did find those two items out about that. I wanted to let the board know in case there's not a public hearing. I did want to give you that information. And also, and I expect Mr. Grubbs will touch on it, I think they're asking for the date of the public hearing to be April 26th. Is that correct? Instead of April 4th. There's no problem in doing that. When you adopt the resolution, just make, if you adopt it, just make it that the public hearing will be April 26th. So there is, and I think there was a question last time about the process. There is a process that you have to follow in closing a public street. You have to have this public session, whether or not to adopt the resolution. And then once, if the resolution is adopted to have that public hearing, it has to be advertised for 4 weeks. If the board does close the public street, then a portion of that goes back to the property owners. It will be deeded back to them. It's usually, it's done through a plat map, but we also recommend that you start doing it through a deed, because a lot of times the plats, if you don't go in far enough, you won't find that plat. 25, 30 years down the road, nobody's around that was here when it was closed, and it doesn't show up on the deed, then, you know, somebody might still think it's a public street. So that is the process that follows. We can certainly, April 26th, if the board chooses to move forward with it, we can certainly meet the advertising deadlines for that public hearing. So be glad to answer any questions that the board may have regarding any of that or the processes going forward.
Colleagues on the board, do you have any questions of Curtis about what we're doing tonight?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we consider the resolution setting the date of August 26th, April the 26th, for the public hearing to consider the closing of Moravian Lane.
All right, we have a motion second. Alderman Thompson, a motion by Alderman Gorham. Is there any conversation? Is there any discussion? If not, then all in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, no, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay.
And Mayor Pro Tem, you had two individuals that signed up to speak on that. You may ask them if they would still like to speak.
We did. And we have Kathy Bowman Atkins. Ms. Atkins, would you like to speak?
Sorry?
Would you like to speak on that?
We voted, that's really what we wanted to have happen. We sent you a letter.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to belabor it, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we thought it was important to have the hearing.
I understand.
And I think we're fine with that, and we'll come back and hear it again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. And then we have Ms. Maggie Gray, who has signed up. Ms. Gray?
Can I just say one thing
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Even though we didn't know all those reports were going to
Come to the mic over here if you would, please. We have a live stream, and
Even though we didn't know all of those reports were going to be up front tonight before this came up, it actually turned out, at least for me, and we were talking at the break, to have really been a great thing, because Joe, what you said about the work that they're doing and how great this is for our community, that was really different. I wish everybody could hear and see all of that. You know, we're a church that's really into the community and the things that we do, and that was pretty amazing, you know, to sit here and listen to all of that. Even though it took a long time, it was really substantive, and we appreciate it.
well, there's much good to be said about Kernersville and its people, and I will tell you, Alderman Penix has on several occasions just had some of the, in my view, some of the most heartwarming and inspirational words for us as a board. One time when we talked about the acquisition of property around Ivy Redmond Park to become part of that. I remember Alderman Penix saying after that, you know, we have just planted trees under which none of us probably will sit under the shade, you know, and I thought that was that resonated with me, so thank you. And thank you, Alderman Penix, for your sharing that with us. Okay. I believe that's all the speakers on that particular item, I believe. Hope I didn't miss one. Okay. Item E is consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 8 for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. That is ordinance amendment 1E, March 7. Curtis.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Board, you have in your packet the memo from Franz Zader to myself about budget amendment number 8. There are several decreases, fortunately, in expenditures. What we're doing is we're picking up the second half of the ARPA funding. As you all recall, we received about $7.8 million in two payments of $3.9 million. So we got the second payment of $3.9 million in fiscal year 22-23. We picked up the first 1.9 million of that earlier in the year. This is picking up the second 1.9, and it's what we're doing with this is the same thing that we did with the first 1.9. We're rolling it into general government operations, mainly in salaries and wages, and then the money that is budgeted for that will come back out of that line item and go into the general fund. So about all of those that you see in there, with the exception of two, are really for ARPA. One of those that is not is the first one in governing body, the $750,000 for the visitor center. That was the town's pledge to cover half of the cost of the visitor center of $750,000. We have to move that money out of the general fund balance over into governing bodies so that we can at some point in time pay that invoice. They have raised their $750,000 per our agreement. Once they have that raised, then we give them the town's $750,000. And I will tell you that it was probably actually more than 1.5. I think it was around about 2 or 2.2. So they raised about 1.5, and then we have the $750,000. So that is the first one. The other one you see in there is number 7. It's to decrease the fire department expenditures for the amount of $4,091,188 to reflect decreases in salaries and wages per the ARPA grant, and to transfer to a capital project fund for the Beeson's Crossroads Fire Station. We're not taking $4 million out of the fire department and telling them they can't go fight fires. They had a lot of those recently, so we probably may have to put some more in there to cover the water. But anyway, this what we're doing is moving the Beeson's fire station out of the general fund into a capital project fund. We do that when we get close on these capital projects because it allows us to run that fund for a period of years. If it takes over a year or so to build that building, it's not in the general fund, it's in the capital project fund. So we're moving that out there as well. And then Parks and Recreation, we have the decrease or increase in the expenditures in the amount of $266,000. That's the net increase. Big portion of that is for the $350,000 for the land purchase down on Beeson Road. The board approved that last month, so we expect to go to closing on that property probably this month at the end of March. And so we need to go ahead and do that transfer over into that line item so that we will be prepared to pay for the property once we go to closing. So overall is what we have done. You'll see under general fund revenues, number 4, we've actually decreased the amount of fund balance appropriated by about $800,000 through this year. So be glad to answer any questions. Again, on most of those is washing in and out with the salaries and wages for that, with the exception of those 3 actually that I covered.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swisher. Are there any questions on the part of the public at this point about that point? Any question from my colleagues on the board? There being none, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right. Motion by Alderman Thompson, second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item F, consideration of a resolution regarding a local government commission application for a financing contract for the construction and improvements. R 2023 LGC application, Beeson's Crossroads, FYE 23. Okay, Curtis.
We are required, as you have seen in several board meetings since you've been on the board, we are required to go to the LGC anytime we build a building, do improvements to real property, anything along those lines. We have to go to the local government commission. We do not have to go to the local government commission if we buy rolling stock, like equipment, things like that. We're not required to go. This is for the Beeson's Crossroads Fire Station. As you all are aware, we are doing improvements to that, which include renovating the existing building, and we will add on a good portion of that building we'll add on as well, coming back toward Union Cross Road. It's one of those projects that It's an improvement to real property, so we have to go to the LGC. This is the first step in that. And it's what we have in here is we would like to submit an application for a loan not to exceed 4.5 million. We've got rough quotes back on that. We've not put it out to bid yet. It looks like the building itself is about 3.9, somewhere in there. Got soft cost of about 300,000, and then we have about 100 and some thousand of contingency. Pushes us up to about 4.3 million. The building coming in at about 3.9 is pretty good. We initially figured it was going to be somewhere around 3.1 to 3.3, so it's not terribly over budget from what we anticipated because we started it 2 years ago, and so we're now getting to that part. We anticipate putting that out to bid here shortly, and we'll have bids back on it. But this is the first step in submitting that application, and again, it's not to exceed 4.5, but we'll submit the application and get the actual loan for whatever that comes in at. We just don't want, the way they do the calendar at the LGC, if we submit it for 4.3 and then it comes in at 4.35, we've got to come back and we have that delay. So we always increase it a little bit so we don't have that delay.
So I observe here in the notes, in the memorandum, Curtis, that notwithstanding this authority from the local government commission, that the town will not borrow funds in excess of that budgeted and approved by this board.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Curtis?
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, on that note, if something were to happen and it comes in at 4.7 million or 5 million or whatever it may be, and I think we actually may have had to do this on a project, we would just come back to you all and say, hey, this is where we're at. We need you to go back and adopt this. We would probably still do the project. We would just start back and go through these steps again at a later date, kind of delay our submittal to the LGC. But we would do that as we couldn't go through if it comes in anything over 4.5. We couldn't go through without coming back to the board.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions in the audience now? Okay. If not, board members, any questions? Okay.
I'd make a motion,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Okay.
that we authorize the filing of the application for approval of a financing agreement for this particular project.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Barrow, second by Alderman Thompson, I believe. Okay. All those in favor then, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. Item G, 1G, consideration of a resolution adopting the Town of Kernersville Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2023, 2024 through 2027, 2028. Our 2023 Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal year 2024 through 2028. Okay, Curtis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Board, you have in your packet that capital improvement plan. It covers basically 5 different areas. You have total vehicle capital outlay, total equipment, total infrastructure, total buildings, and then total transportation. So we break it down to the department heads that are responsible for items in those particular areas. They go through and kind of prioritize what year they would, if everything goes well, what year they would see replacing that equipment or doing that project or whatever. As I told you last year, and as I told you again last week when we were covering this at the briefing, this obligates you to nothing. It obligates the town to nothing. We're required by state statute to adopt a CIP plan, 5-year CIP plan. So we adopt one every year. So this one is, as was pointed out, is from fiscal year 23-24 through fiscal year 27-28. I can assure you just about, without a doubt, that something in this plan will get moved back, get moved up, and probably get dropped. So, it's an exercise in putting together that if you could wave a magic wand and have all the money you wanted at any time you wanted it and knew that the economy was going to stay like it was, this is the order you would do it in. I've been doing this for about 15 years and I've not yet had that magic wand work. This might be the year, but again, I doubt it. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about any of the 5 areas there or any of these sub-items in those 5 areas.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right?
Quite frequently, this one does.
Okay. Do we have any questions then on this consideration of resolution from the audience? Do we have any questions from the members of the board? There being none then, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Thompson, second by Alderman Barrow. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, no. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Item H is consideration of a contract award for the construction of paving improvements 1H March 7. Curtis?
Yes, we, as you know, we had $1.5 million allocated in the budget for 22-23 for resurfacing. We put out the areas that we're looking to resurface. We put that out to bid. We received 3 bids: Yakin Valley Paving, APAC, Thompson Arthur Paving, and Sharp Brothers Paving. Yakin Valley came in at the lowest at just a little bit over $1.4 million. So we will look to do a little bit more than what we initially thought. Maybe add some roads to that to get up to the total of 1.5. So we are recommending that the board award that contract for resurfacing to Yakin Valley Paving. They are a responsible bidder. They have done a lot of work for the town, as has the rest of them. Had great success with what they have done, so we have no problems recommending that award of contract to them.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the public? Members of the board, any questions?
I don't see anything on here as to what it is they're resurfacing. I mean, I understand, but
Dawn can tell you the roads that we're looking at.
I know it's the top of the list of what needed to be done, but I just don't see it anywhere referenced on anything that's on these 2 pages. Thanks, Dorn.
Currently, without adding, like Curtis said, the streets, the ones we had previously put on the map for the contractor to bid on was these are subdivisions. I won't go through all of the streets, but and in each one of these subdivisions, it's all the streets in those subdivisions. So it's Willow Bend, Doe Run, Wexford, Gatewood Estates, and Windfall.
Alderman Thompson, does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dorn.
Any other questions, folks? Thank you, Mr. Mall. Okay, there being none, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Thompson, second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. There being none, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next section on the agenda is the consent agenda. And all of these matters that are listed.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
You've got a couple of more items.
Did I miss one?
You've got item I and item J.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, let me get back to where are they? I have forgive me, okay, these are newer than the agenda that I had made notes on, so I apologize. Okay.
Have you got one?
I do. Thank you. Have it on here. Thank you for looking at the old one too. We are not on the consent agenda. We're on item I, under the matters for comment or for presentation, public comment. Item I is discussion and consideration of an ordinance ordering non-residential structure located at 900A East Mountain Street demolished and removed pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160D-1125. 2023, a demolition order for 900A East Mountain Street and Exhibit A on the agenda having to do with 900A East Mountain Street. Okay, we have one speaker signed up to speak on that, and that's Mr. Tommy Dalton. Welcome, Mr. Dalton.
Yeah, and I'm Tommy Dalton. I'm an attorney from Winston-Salem with the Craig Jenkins, Litford, and Walker law firm. I represent Congress Gardens, the owner of the property. I'm here primarily for one reason, is to ask for another continuance. I know y'all given us several continuances, but we are this close to having this matter under contract and having this property under contract to sell. I know y'all are familiar with what's been going on, and we've been trying to sell that property for some time and have had it listed. And I really think it'll be beneficial to everyone if we can get this contract, get this property under contract, get it sold. It'll be a win-win for everyone. The new developer can come in and tear those buildings down, build something nice for the town of Kernersville, increase tax revenue. My client will no longer own the property and have to deal with this any further. And I know last month I asked for a continuance and indicated that we were close to having it under contract, and we were, and we still are. We just got some minor details to work out. We've actually agreed on a price, but with the commercial property, there are other deposits, escrow amounts, additional consideration if they ask for a continuance. And one thing I will represent to this board, if you're willing to continue this for another 30 days, I will promise you right here today, I will not come back next month and ask for another continuance. That will not happen, okay? But I really think it will be in everybody's best interest. I know it's been dragging on for some time, but another 30 days, hopefully we've got this thing under contract and we've got it moving forward to someone else owning this property and developing it. And again, that would be my request to ask that if you had another meeting in 2 weeks, it probably would be 2 weeks, but my understanding is you don't have another meeting until April. And I would ask that it be continued to your April meeting, and hopefully by that time I can report back to Ed, say we've got it under contract and we're ready to let someone else take over the property. And it'll take a little time to close. But again, I think it'll be a win-win for everybody if y'all would consider granting that 30-day continuance. Thank you.
I've got a question for you, Tommy.
Sure.
Now, the people that you're dealing with now is the same people you were dealing with last month, correct?
Correct.
And y'all are trying to get this.
Now, we did have somebody look at it yesterday that was very, very interested in it, but we don't have anything in writing from them. But the ones that we're trying to close the gap on are the same people we were dealing with last month. That's correct.
And you think y'all get it done in the next 30 days?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if we don't, I'm not coming back asking for another continuance. I hear you. I've got it. My client's aware of it as well.
Define getting it done for me, Tommy. Is getting it done mean under contract, or getting it done meaning closed?
Under contract. We'll never get it closed in 30 days. That's not going to happen with a commercial property. But getting it done is having it under contract and agreement. Everybody's agreed on the terms, and then move forward with the closing.
Do you still have environmental surveys to be done, phase 1, phase 2?
Have they, or are they going to be done?
Are they going to be?
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
but there is a due diligence time period, at least proposed in the contract. But I don't know what the buyer's going to do during that time period, what type of studies they're going to be doing.
They've not been done yet.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So what's the major showstopper right now? Why hasn't it been, I mean, I know y'all negotiating and whatnot, but what's the showstopper to keeping y'all from, making this deal come together? I mean, I kind of like to know what that is, if you're so confident that it's going to work.
Well, one reason I'm confident it's going to work is because we've now agreed on a price, and the price has been the fundamental difference in the parties, and that gap has been met. And now we're dealing with how much escrow money you're going to put down, if you want a continuance or an extension of the contract, how much more additional these are much more smaller details to deal with when we've now agreed on the purchase price.
Tommy, in your opinion, if we go forward tonight to tear this thing down, is that going to monkey up the works of what you're trying to do to get this thing closed?
It depends on how quick y'all move on it, or whether it's just going to be an order and you're going to give us some time to work out these details and hopefully go forward with the sale of the property. But if you move expeditiously with want to go tear this thing down, I'll be surprised if it doesn't. Although I do think the buyer's planning on tearing everything down, but it's going to affect the purchase price because we're going to get hit with the cost of tearing it down, or either we're going to have to tear it down and incur that cost, so it's going to start renegotiating the contract again.
I understand. So if we just waited 30 days and y'all close, then the liability for this will go forward to the new owner. Be real clear, correct?
Yes, but I do want to be clear, I'm not expecting a closing in 30 days.
Well, but you get it under contract.
Signed contract,
and
yes.
everybody's positions will be.
Right. In writing.
Yeah.
Agreed to, yes.
Good deal.
I would tell the board that, and this is totally up to the board, if you go through with this tonight, and then if Mr. Doughton brings a contract to the board before the next meeting in April, at that point, you can certainly delay the demolition, but you do have the order for demolition adopted. So the new buyer is aware that there is an order for demolition on that property. And then you don't have to start back over in that order for that order for demolition. So there's options there. The process, I will tell you, the process moving forward from tonight, if the board adopts this, if the board doesn't adopt it, then the process would be, wait 30 days. If the board adopts it, we have to go out and get bids for demolition to bring back to you all at the April meeting. So at that point, when we come back with the bids, if the board decides to adopt this tonight, at the April meeting, when we come back with bids, if Mr. Doughton has a contract on it, at that point in time, the board can say, look, he's got a contract on it. We don't want to move forward with the demolition. But if you adopt it tonight, you have that order there. I think they've been this close, and I'm not doubting Mr. Doughton, but they've been this close for 3 years. We're 6 days shy of dealing with this for 3 years. And to Mr. Doughton's defense, I don't think he was involved that entire time.
I do want to address that issue because we started down the process of trying to fix the building up. And then there was an arsonist that came in there in January of 2020, I think, and burned it up, which created additional substantial cost to fix it up. It's only been like the last 9 months that we have full force gone forward. We're trying to sell the property and adopted that that's our better recourse to deal with this situation. So we haven't been trying to sell it for 3 years. We've really only been trying to sell it for about 9 months roughly.
And that was because this board basically forced them into selling it, or fixing it up. But again, I think my recommendation to Mr. Powell's would be to move forward with the order for demolition. Again, knowing that in April is when we can't do anything until you all approve the bids for demolition. The next meeting again is April. If he's as close as he says, he'll have that contract in place by April. And I think that would be Mr. Powell's recommendation.
My concern here is that, who's going to be liable to pay for this? And I think the new owner, it would be in his best interest for him to contract to tear the building down and do it on his timetable and with his equipment or whatever. We don't know what kind of resources he has.
No one would be liable until after we got bids in and the board took action on.
And again,
but once we start, we're not going to stop. Is that correct?
No, to clarify, we have started before on another building in town, and the owner came forward and said, hey, I can get it torn down cheaper, and the board giving them a deadline and say, you've got till then or we're tearing it down, and they moved forward and tore it down. So in this situation, even if Mr. Doughton's clients, the current owners, came up and said, hey, we can get it torn down for half of what you can, then we would give them a timeline to tear it down. They go in and do it. If they don't, then we do it. So, of course, if somebody came in and said, hey, I can get it torn down cheaper, then we would allow them to do that. It doesn't matter to us who tears it down. We just want it down. We would give them a deadline to have it torn down by. So, yes, we would stop once this order is adopted. If they still came up, like say by April with a contract, or for some reason they came in and said, we've got a contract to tear it down. That's what happened in the last scenario, was the individual that owned the property came up with a contract to have it torn down. The board said, that's fine, just here's your deadline to have that torn down, and we allowed them to tear it down. So we would, at that point, because knowing that, you know, they may have the resources, especially if the new owner is, you know, going to start the whole project, tear it down, grade it and everything at the same time, then they would already be mobilized and could certainly probably do it cheaper than we could just have someone go and do that particular demolition.
So Curtis, so I can kind of understand, you're basically saying that if we go ahead and vote to go ahead and have this torn down tonight, and they come in with a contract, signed contract by next meeting, right? We can halt everything.
You certainly could. That would be up to the board at that point in time. And I think, you know, in that contract, I would assume they probably have an estimated closing date and so forth. Like I said, they wouldn't close. So I think then, you know, the board knows they have a valid contract with an anticipated valid closing date. Then the board could at that point in time say, we don't want to go in and demo it right now. Okay. And halt it. Yes, you could.
Got it. Now, how would that affect the negotiation process if we decided to do that, in your opinion?
If the board is going to look at our contract and hold off, if we get it under contract before the next meeting, I don't think it's going to have a material effect, if that's going to happen. What I'm concerned about is there seems to be strong interest in this community to tear this building down. And I'm afraid once we start this process, somebody's going to keep trying to push that. And this delay, even though we have it under contract, they're going to say, well, we're still going forward with it. That's what worries me.
Tommy, let me correct you there.
Okay.
I'll take issue with, respectfully, issue with what you just said. This community isn't in the demolition business. However, I'm looking at a timeline that we had prepared for this from the beginning of these problems. The first thing on the timeline is after numerous reports of the building unsecured and possible activity at or inside the structure, property was inspected. It was determined that many violations of GS 160A-426 were there, including the sprinkler system. Now, our interest in March, the prior board did this, took care of that action. But the same problems we had then exist today. I understand the fire intervened. But I think that this board, I can't speak for this board, but I can tell you what I'm interested in. I'm interested in that doggone building either being brought up to standards and fixed, and if not, I'm interested in getting it torn down. Now, that's 3 years, and you weren't involved, so I'm not.
Well, actually, I want to correct that too. I have been involved with it for 3 years.
Well,
I joined my law firm that I'm with now about 3 years ago. This is one of the first clients that I was assigned to. So I have been dealing with it for 3 years.
You've been wrestling with an alligator then, haven't you? But I want to take issue with the fact that we seem to be focused on tearing it down. We don't want to tear it down. But if the only way we can get that nuisance fixed is to tear it down, then I would personally be strongly in favor of doing it. And I will also say to you, and again, there's no hunger, there's no appetite for doing that. In fact, on the contrary. But I will say to you that I would be strongly opposed to doing anything at this point that would slow that process by a single day of our getting to a point that it could be demolished. Now, that having been said, having a contract, as you know, probably better than I do, can mean a whole lot of things. I would say that I would be opposed if you had a contract that closing wasn't going to occur for 6 months. Doesn't really change my attitude about it. But if you've got something that is in a good faith and a reasonably scheduled closing process that is to happen, and several of us up here have dealt with commercial properties before, so I understand what you're saying. But coming in here with a contract that says we'll close within the next 12 months,
I don't anticipate that happening, but I also don't anticipate, and I don't want to represent this board, that it's going to close within 30 days. Commercial properties don't do that.
No, but commercial properties do in 6 months. Am I wrong about that?
Some of them do, and I have not been personally involved in the day-to-day negotiations of the contract. We have a realtor that's a local realtor here in Kernersville that's been handling that for us. So I can't tell you the exact details of every potential term that's in there. But once we get it under contract, I'm willing to share it with Ed. I'll probably redact out the purchase price. But most of the other terms, I don't think are. I don't mind sharing that with you.
I just am interested in the time now starting to run against those who have delayed, as opposed to having the time run with a blank check against us, against the town of Kernersville. So, if we've got a good faith contract that has reasonable terms in it, and, we certainly will defer a lot, I would, to, if there are speed bumps there, you certainly are going to know and are going to tell us about them. We're not trying to be unreasonable about it. I'm not trying to be unreasonable about it in saying what I'm saying, but man, this has gone on long enough. We've got a fire.
I hear you.
We've got a fire
and
department.
I've had that conversation with my client.
We've got a fire department and a police department who are saying, we're not going in that building. It's too dark. There's too many obstructions. And if there's a fire,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, though. I don't think there's been any violent crime out there that I'm aware of in the last 3 years. I don't think anybody's been shot. I don't think anybody's been stabbed. Has there been some criminal activity out there? Yes.
There's been a constant danger to life and property out there for 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
And no, it's not the kind of things that he talked about. But there's been a danger to our firefighters, been a danger to the town in liability for keeping this going for all this time, and someone may lose their life in there and bring a lawsuit against us.
I don't want to be responsible for somebody's daddy, husband, or brother or sister dying out there, even though they
we do not either. We do not either.
Recognize Alderman Penix. He had an observation.
Well, Mr. Powell just said what I was going to say. We're not in the demolition business, but we're not sitting here waiting for somebody to die out there. I was by there today. I mean, number one, it's an eyesore. It's got plywood all over, plywood that's been torn off. No telling how many people are in there right now. And every time our fire department or our police department has to go in there, it's our liability. We're putting them at risk. We don't know what they're going to face when they walk in there. And it doesn't seem to me that you guys have done anything to make it safer or improve it at all in 3 years. Am I wrong about that?
Well, we've certainly tried. We've had private security guards out there many, many times for many months. We've tried to board the place up and keep people out of there. Recently, one of our employees was out there checking on the place, found somebody in the building. They called the police department, and they arrested someone. And that's very positive, and we're real happy about that, because anybody who goes in there, we would love for them to be arrested and put in jail. So yes, we have tried to deal with it. But yes, there are people, particularly recently, that have come in there with some serious equipment and broken into the place, torn the plywood off, gone in there, stole pipes, copper, all kinds of stuff in the building. That has happened recently, meaning in the last few months. But I think we caught the guy. We caught somebody.
Let me ask you a question. Is there security out there tonight?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Was there security out there last night?
No. And I will point out, in February, when this most recent things occurred, I reached out to the police department in Kernersville and my client was willing to pay for off-duty police officers, and they weren't willing to do that.
Your client was not willing to do that?
No, my client was willing to pay for off-duty police officers to help secure the place, but the Kernersville Police Department was not willing to do that.
We can't ask them to go in there, Mr. Doughton, Chief.
I responded to the request for us to go out there, but after consulting with Attorney Powell, we think we decided on 4 or 5 officers at a minimum to work out there to be safe, because the property is so big to be able to cover the whole property and address the whole surroundings, not to mention who may or may not be in the building as well.
Chief, what would it take just to cover the building itself? Because that's the problem. Not all the property out there, but just the building itself as far as coverage for the police department.
I would still say it would take a minimum of at least 4 people.
Because what they do is they can come in on the backside, come up through the woods.
Yeah, and when Chief talked about it being so big, they've got so many access points that if you've got to have one kind of at each point. So what we figured was you've got to have one in the front, you got to have one down near the woods on the front.
All you need is a roving patrol, somebody just roving around that gives a presence, right? Well, and when they see that vehicle constantly coming around, okay, I think that would deter people from coming in because they know a security element is there. If you leave it vacant and no security out there, then you got a whole different problem.
It has not deterred them in the past. In fact, we had an incident when security was out there and people had came in and gotten in the building. The same way that I was explaining this, if security is in the front, even if they're riding around, someone coming in from either down near on Mountain Street coming up that way, they'll wait for them to go around and go in that way. Or if they come in from the left of the building and come in that way. So, I mean, really to make sure that you're covering the areas where they can come and get in the building, you would need 3 and possibly 4 at least, if just doing that building. And I would like to address a question Alderman Barrow asked about stopping the demolition. I was thinking about it. There was one several years ago, and I can't remember if I may have been the mayor or may have just started as manager. We stopped it about, I think we had already put it out to bid, we being the town, we'd already put it out to bid, got bids in, and the owner of the building contacted myself and John Wolf, who was the town attorney at the time, and met with us, I think, either a week or 2 weeks before we were to move forward with demolition, and said they had someone that would tear it down for, $5,000 less or whatever. And so we pulled back the folks we had contracted with to do it. So same thing here. I mean, even if we go out and put it out to bid and we get a bid and it's not been torn down, if Mr. Doughton's clients say, hey, I've got somebody to do it cheaper, they contact us, we would, as long as they have a valid contract of doing it on day whatever, then we could stop what we would be doing depending on the way the contract's written. But so I remember that one. It was the old Caterpillar building down on Old Greensboro Road as you go to FedEx, the one that used to sit right there on Salem Parkway. And also one other thing that's been discussed, police and fire being out there. Since late 2019 to recently, the police have been out there 357 times for whatever it may be. And that included times when they had private security out there. I think the sheriff's department may have worked at a period of time. And I believe it was when the sheriff's department was out there is when they actually still got people inside the building. So it is such a big structure. It's hard to have one, because they'll just wait. It's kind of like somebody breaking in a building. If they see somebody coming, they're just waiting and go in after they go by. So,
Mr. Doughton, I don't even want to know what 300 police responses cost. But this police department and our fire department for this town, we've been elected to represent the interest of this town. This police department and our fire department are not here for the purpose of providing security over a 3-year period of time for your client and putting the police officers and our firemen at risk for doing that, not to mention the expense, which I guarantee you has not been reimbursed to the town for all of that attention. And that's been happening while nothing has been done. We even had to ask after we gave an extension for you to list for your clients to list the property for sale. We had to ask that the sign be put up, for goodness sake. I mean,
Well, I'm gonna tell you what the realtor told me about that, because I made the inquiry as well. And this is local realtor from Kernersville. They're putting a sign up this day and age to sell a commercial piece of property is almost a waste of time. That's not how properties are sold today. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I don't know either.
But that's what I was told. Now, they ultimately got one up, is my understanding.
Well, they did after we asked for one to be put up, and it's just not, it's not the responsibility of this town to babysit them. And particularly when we feel like that there's not been a continuous good faith effort to comply with the statute and the notices and citations that have been issued here. It's costing the people of this town who elected us a ton of money to babysit this property. And I don't mind telling you, I can't speak for this whole board, they vote their conscience. But I can tell you, not one day, in my opinion, in slowing this process ought to happen. And that doesn't mean if you come to us, within 30 days with a signed contract, that we're not going to look at it and consider it. But I would be, anything we do to grant an extension, in my view, should it include a review by the town's attorney of that contract to be sure that it is a good faith binding contract by responsible parties to buy and sell this property. I mean, it's amazing for us to put our policemen at risk and put our firemen at risk to look after property when the owner of the property has not demonstrated good faith for 3 years. And from my perspective, I got one vote, but it's over. That is over.
I have every intention, when we get this under contract, sharing it with Mr. Powell.
Well, I hope that we're able to work it out so that your buyer can take care of it, because we're not in a demolition business, but we can sure get that way. And I hope your buyer and your seller, your clients, understand that there's a high degree of aggravation and frustration on the part of at least one alderman to what's been going on in the period of time this has happened. And I'm not, I respect you and like you a great deal, Tommy. I couldn't always control my clients when I was in law practice. And only Mr. Barrow can that I know of. But this time.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I could ask you a question about
Yes, sir.
his email he sent to me today. You indicated in that there was a letter of intent and not a sales contract.
Yeah,
What's the difference in your mind on that?
Well, we're first working on getting the letter of intent executed, and then shortly after that, the contract would be drawn up based on the letter of intent, and the official contract would be drawn. But yes, the first document that would be done would be the letter of intent, and then a full-blown commercial contract would be prepared and signed and executed by the parties based on the terms of the letter of intent.
But you were asking for 30 days just for that, weren't you?
No. I'm anticipating to have them both done within 30 days.
Well, let's be clear about that.
Yeah, no, I'm talking contract.
Sales contract, purchase agreement. No.
Yes, I believe that will happen before y'all's next meeting.
Signed by everybody.
That is my expectation.
I'm not talking, well, it's our expectation. Right now, that's what matters to me.
Right. And that's what I told you. Yeah. I'm not coming back next month asking for another continuance if it's not signed.
Well, your client better not.
Well, he won't have to if you go ahead and approve this tonight, and then if he brings something in, then you can withhold any action on a demolition agreement to demolish, and let him move forward on the contract. But I think you need something to put some teeth in it.
Well, I think we do too. And I think I can't speak. Once again, these folks have independent minds and independent votes. But I can tell you, it's going to take some good faith, and it's going to take some teeth in whatever you bring before us to stop this ball from rolling. I'm tired. I hadn't even been involved since 2020. But I'm tired of hearing excuses and extensions, and this board and our board before us granted multiple extensions for all this, and nothing happened. So I would be opposed to anything that would stop our legal process from moving forward, not even by 30 days. I'm thinking not a day. And I'm not speaking for anybody but me, but I'm extremely frustrated, and I suspect I'm not the only one in this room who is.
I hear you.
Okay, but we mean it. If they have any question about how serious this is, get them to watch the tape. It's on YouTube.
Mr. Doughton, you're here tonight because you need that 30 days, is that correct?
Yes.
Because you wouldn't be here if you thought that we could stop this thing within 30. You wouldn't be sitting here representing your client if you didn't think that it was going to help close the deal by us giving you 30 days. Is that correct?
That's correct. No question about it.
And as Mr. Apple has said, we were elected by the people of Kernersville, okay? The taxpayers. Who is your client? Pays a ton of tax down there for that property. Although it hadn't been doing anything the last 3, 4, 5 years, they still paid their taxes right along. And I think our job as board members is to do everything we can to move this piece of property to somebody who's going to do something with it. And if I thought it would hinder it one little bit, just the least, which obviously it will, because that's why you're here on that 30 days, I think we have to give them the 30 days. Because we're going to wind up, in 30 days, we're not going to spend an hour talking about it, getting all bowed up about, what we can and can't do and tear buildings down. We got all the power. We can tear it down anytime we want to. But we want to help you get it sold so we can put somebody on that property that's going to do something good for Kernersville.
And that's what we want to happen as well.
And that's what I want to happen, but I'm just one vote. And my vote says give you the 30 days. Because then that's what you're asking for. You're not coming back. We'll be done. We won't have to fight and argue about it anymore. And I think that's what we need to do. And I'd make a motion at this time to stand down for 30 days to give Mr. Doughton the opportunity to do what he come here to do. That's as I think as the board representing the people of Kernersville, that's what we want to happen. We have to weigh everybody's interest. But I think if that's going to help him sell it, then that's what we need to do. And that would be my motion is to give him the 30 days.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Barrow. Do I hear a second? Second. Okay. Alderman
Mayor
Gordon.
Pro Tem Apple.
Yes.
For clarification,
Yes.
rather than 30 days, would you suggest delaying it until the April 4th meeting, which is actually just slightly less than 30 days?
And that's what we anticipated, and that's what we're fine with.
Yeah, I would amend it as that, yes.
Would you accept that to your second? Alderman Gorham, okay.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or any discussion?
No.
Okay. If not, all those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand, excuse me. All those opposed to that by raising your right hand. Okay. Motion fails for 3-2 vote. So I guess what that means, Ed, is that the legal process continues.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you don't have a motion that is passed, so if you
That's right.
intend not to give them 30 days, somebody will need to make the motion to adopt the resolution.
All right.
Or you're just kind of out in limbo with nothing at that point.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'd like to say something first, please.
Yes, sir.
My concern that I have is what's not talked about is the concern of someone getting hurt down there, that being the citizens. And you're talking a lot about we're voted here by the citizens and they're paying tax dollars. All the citizens are paying tax dollars with all the police department, fire department going down there and answering over 300 calls down there. We've been lucky for 3 years that nobody's been killed. You even said you've had to call the police twice yourself.
Not me personally, but my client has.
Right, but to me, it's baffling. We're sitting here again, and I understand your time frame, but it's a commercial contract. whether you come back at the end of this month, it's not going to close within 6 months, or I don't know when it's going to close. It's going to take 6 months or a year for a commercial contract to close. So what are we going to do then? So if we push this off and you got somebody that's going to buy it, what are we going to do for another 6 months or a year while you're waiting to close? We're going to keep sending people down there answering calls, hoping someone's not dead. That to me is troublesome for anyone that's going to be down there and the citizens that are around here going down there. So that's my reasoning behind, and I'm going to motion to approve this ordinance, and that's my reasoning why.
All right, we have a motion to approve the ordinance. Is there a second? Second. Have a second by Mr. Penix, Alderman Penix. Motion by Alderman Thompson. Any questions? There being none, then all those in favor of approving the ordinance, please signify by raising your hand.
Mayor Pro Tem Applewhite,
Yes.
did you say that the motion was made by Alderman Penix and seconded by Alderman Thompson?
I said by
It was Alderman Thompson who made the motion,
Yes.
correct?
Alderman Penix seconded the motion. I'm sorry if I misspoke. Okay. If there are no questions at this point, all those in favor of Chris's motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, all right.
I'll make one more
passes.
statement.
I'm sorry?
I'll make one more statement.
Yes, sir.
As Curtis mentioned, if you get a contract in place, you can bring this back at the next meeting and we can discuss it again. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doughton. You're doing a great job representing your client. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me pull up. Sure there's not. Okay. The next item on this section of the agenda is discussion and consideration of the sale of property to NCDOT for the Big Mill Farm Road project. NCDOT U-5760-100 offer letter appraisal for property sale to NCDOT and tax map are all attached to this item. Mr. Swisher.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Board, I would like to request that this item be withdrawn at this time and then placed back on. Alderman Thompson brought up at the last meeting the possibility of DOT just taking all of that land and instead of leaving a little bit less than a half acre of it. I've contacted the land acquisition person that I've been working with. It's an independent company. She doesn't work for DOT, but she has contacted DOT, and the process is they have to submit an uneconomic remnant letter to DOT for approval. So in other words, you can't just go in and give that half acre to DOT. They have to say, yeah, we'll take it. You would think, a half acre of land, they would just go ahead and take it, but evidently if it's not any good, they don't want it either. So she has submitted that. Don't really have a timeline of when we may hear back, but obviously I haven't heard back tonight. So if you will vote to withdraw that from the agenda, and then I will place it back on the future agenda when I have an answer.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a motion to withdraw item J from the agenda?
So moved.
Alderman Thompson, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Gorham, a second. Any discussion or questions? Okay. If not, those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to I better check my online version.
Consent agenda.
Yeah, consent agenda. All right. All of the following matters on the consent agenda are matters considered to be routine by the Board of Aldermen and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the matter will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the next item, under the following item. So that having been said, the first item on the consent agenda is approval of minutes for February 7, 2023, closed session. Item B is consideration of a resolution declaring the service weapon and badge of Kevin Miller surplus and authorizing disposal. And that will be a resolution 2023 yet to be numbered, entitled Badge and Service Weapon to Kevin Miller. Is there anyone, a citizen, or is there a member of the board that would like to have either of these items removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda in its entirety?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Gorham. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by, who gave
Joe.
Joe, okay, Alderman Penix, I'm sorry. Couldn't hear that. Okay. There's a motion and second. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. We're now down to the town manager's report. And Curtis, I'll ask about the item A, consideration of appointments to the Board of Directors for the Paul J. Senior Botanical Garden Friends of Foundation. Curtis.
As per our agreement with the Garden Foundation when we did the merger, this board can appoint up to 50% of their board. They currently have 6 members on their board of directors, so it means we can appoint 6. I've discussed it with the board. At this time, would like to recommend appointing the following 4 individuals. Mayor Pro Tem Bill Apple, Alderman Joe Penix, the town manager position, and the Parks and Recreation Director position, which of course, current time is myself and Ernie Pages. We will take, I think the thought is maybe go through the application process for the other 2 remaining seats at some point in time in the future when everything that transition is sorted out and operating smoothly. So right now, I'd like to get those 4 positions appointed. Their board meeting for you two, Mayor Pro Tem and Alderman Penix, their board meets the 2nd Monday of the month at 4 p.m. At the Garden.
All right. That recommendation being made. Now, Ed, do Alderman Penix and I need to abstain from voting on that, or can we vote on it?
You can vote on that, I do believe. I think it just is funding a contract agreement.
Correct.
So y'all can vote on that.
Okay. All right. Okay. That having been said, are there any questions on the part of the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alderman Thompson.
Second.
Second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed? It's unanimous then. Thank you. Okay. Item B, under the town manager's report, consideration of a resolution declaring property surplus and authorizing disposal, R 2023, with a number yet to be assigned. Declare property surplus and authorize disposal with an attached surplus property memo. Curtis.
You have a memo in your packet as well as a resolution. This is for a 2022 Hino rear load garbage truck that was wrecked in November of 2022. The insurance company has determined it to be a total loss, so we need the board to declare it surplus so that we can receive reimbursement from the insurance company.
All right. Are there any questions? If not, do I hear a motion with respect to that particular item?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman, was it Gorham? Who made that motion? Me?
Jay Alderman.
No, Alderman
You
Gorham.
made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Thompson. Any further discussion? All those then in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, unanimous. Thank you. Okay. All right, item H, excuse me.
Item C.
C. Item C is consideration of an amendment to the contract for financial auditing services, audit contract amendment as an attachment. Curtis?
Yeah, this is our contract with the auditor for the fiscal year 21-22 audit. The original contract had on there that the original due date of the audit was December the 1st of 2022. As you all are aware, it was submitted December the 12th. So the LGC is requiring us to amend that contract to show that the due date was December the 12th instead of December the 1st. So we are requesting that the board amend that. It doesn't affect anything with audit. It's already complete and everything else. We just have to amend that due date from the 1st to the 12th.
Okay. Are there any questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Alderman Penix, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Thompson. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Item D, consideration of an ordinance establishing a capital project fund for the renovation of the Beeson Crossroads Fire Station, O-2023, number to be assigned, Beeson Crossroads Capital Project Fund. Curtis?
I referred to this earlier in the budget amendment. We were setting up a capital project fund for the fire station, so when it goes over from one year to the next, it'll be out of the general fund. You see in there, as I told you, we're estimating the loan to be $4.315 million. Right now, if everything comes in like we anticipate, the $285,000 is what we've already spent and allocated, so we will not be borrowing that money, but we have to show it in the capital project fund. So the total will be $4,600,790. And again, that will probably carry over for a year or two, but it gets it out of the general fund into that capital project fund. This is the way we do most of the projects. The Parks and Rec building already is set up, I think, in a capital project fund. We had one set up for Fire Station 42 when we were doing that as well. So that 4.315 is what we're anticipating the project to be with soft cost contingency and everything.
Okay. Are there any questions, Curtis, on this item? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gorham. If there are no further questions, all those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, there are none. It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is matters to be presented by the town attorney. Do we have those matters any to be presented now, or do we require a closed session?
No further matters, and we do not have need for a closed session.
Okay, all right. That having been said, we don't have to recess for that. Do I hear any matters to be presented by the Board of Aldermen?
No, sir.
Okay. And hearing none, do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alderman Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Thank you very much for your attendance.